What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin, John.
And we have an album review for you. And if you're a fan of like mid-2000s metalcore, this is probably a pretty anticipated one and kind of interesting theme here lately with a lot of those like more melodic metalcore bands from the mid-2000s showing up with new music. We have a new one from Bleeding Through with their new album 9 because it's their 9th album.
Clever.
Very. This comes out on the 14th of February. Happy Valentine's Day on Sharp Tone Records. This band formed in 1999 in California. This is, again, their 9th album overall. I got into them with their 3rd album, This Is Love, This Is Murderous. And I kind of stuck with them for a while, even though I was kind of getting into different stuff. I enjoyed Declaration. I thought The Truth was pretty decent. The Great Fire, I think, is pretty underrated. But my fandom of this band kind of petered out. They ended up breaking up in like 2013 and then reforming in 2017. And I didn't even know. They put out an album in 2018, I believe, and I just kind of completely missed it. But I was like definitely a big fan of this band back in the day. In fact, I even had a decal of the band logo on one of my old cars.
Look at you.
I know, except, you know, some of the letters fell off and people kept asking me who the hell Beatic Tro is. Yeah. I was like, what? Oh, shit. I lost some letters again.
Beatic Tro.
Beatic Tro. Beatic Tro's sick.
Yeah, I actually got into this band as well with This Is Love, This Is Murderous. Back in the day when you could go into the mall, into FYE, when they sold CDs still. Yeah, that's how I found this band. They used to have listening stations at FYE, and if you scanned the barcode of the album, you could actually listen to at least one of the singles or a sample of the album. I remember scanning it and jamming it and going, this is pretty good. And so I bought the record, and I jammed This Is Love, This Is Murderous countless amounts of times. I was a huge fan of that record. Then The Truth came out, and I didn't like that record as much, and I stopped listening to the band. So this would be the first record I've heard since The Truth. I just remember not liking The Truth as much as the record before it, and just kind of fell out.
And for those that don't know, I mean, we've already kind of alluded to what this band style is. It's melodic metalcore with, I would say, like hints of deathcore, death metal, maybe a little bit of black metal and gothic metal in the atmosphere. They're just kind of an interesting band within the whole like metalcore movement in the mid-2000s. I only got to see them once. I think it was Ozfest 2004. They did a solid job live. And I was like legit curious about this one, and some things have definitely changed in this band, though at their core, they still sound like the band that I'm familiar with. And this lineup on here is almost entirely the same lineup that was on This Is Love, This Is Murderous. The only new member on here is one Brandon Richter, formerly of Dawn of Ashes and formerly of Motionless in White, or he might still be in Motionless in White. Either way, I don't care. I like that band. One thing that has changed on here, and I didn't know until I actually checked out some singles, was the fact that Marta, their longtime keyboardist and pianist, she does vocals now. She didn't do vocals before. And that was kind of a surprise. Like, wait, is that a guest vocalist? I was like, oh no, it's Marta. I also learned that she married Phil DeMel. I have definitely been out of touch with this band because I didn't know that either.
Yeah, me too. I had no idea that Marta was doing vocals. I also had no idea she was married to Phil DeMel. But notably, I haven't been into this band since the mid-2000s, so why would I know? But I mean, that's cool. And right away, I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't entirely sure that we were listening to the same band because the first 2 tracks, Gallows and Our Brand is Chaos, are ridiculously heavy. In fact, I don't remember this band being that heavy.
Yeah, I mean, they were heavy, of course.
They were.
They're metalcore. But this definitely has a lot more, like, death metal influences, black metal influences. Like, this felt a little bit more akin to, like, bands like Ingested, like Cattle Decapitation at certain points. Definitely some Black Dahlia Murder.
Whitechapel.
I would totally agree with Whitechapel, too. Like, there's some flat-out brutal moments on here, bordering on like slam style breakdowns. The riffs are hyper aggressive. You still get a little bit of that like kind of at the gatesy sort of flourish that is kind of like all across the style of metalcore. But there's a notable air of brutality. Like this is like some ferocious stuff. And honestly, I'll say Our Brand is Chaos is up there with like one of the heaviest songs this band has ever written.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. I definitely was not expecting to make stank faces during these songs. Like you said, they've always been heavy, but I wasn't ready to get that heavy with this band. And to be honest with you, these first couple songs blew me away. That kind of same excitement can be said pretty much throughout the record, at least any time that there's a breakdown. Again, Our Brand is Chaos. That breakdown is particularly heavy. That's where I got Ingested vibes, was in that breakdown. Lost in Isolation, I Am Resistance, Emery, even the last track, Unholy Armada, have really, really heavy breakdowns in them. Like, outside of this band's normal amount of heavy.
There are some shockingly brutal moments. Lost in Isolation in particular. Granted, this song, it kind of does a little bit of everything that this band does. Like, it's definitely got its more mellow death riffs, but it's played very intensely. The vocals are predominantly harsh. Lots of just hefty chugging. In fact, that song kicks off almost like fucking Fear Factory. Like, those just hefty staccato riffs, big broken down drum patterns. You even have some like old school, like single kick hardcore grooves in there too. And there's even a clean chorus. And it's pretty good. Actually, Brandon and Marta both harmonize pretty well together on that one. And on the bridge, it kind of like, takes this little atmospheric pause and builds into this absolutely disgusting moment. Like, legit, it's probably the heaviest moment on this entire album. Blast beats, syncopated chugs. It's more brutal death than anything else. Even Brennan's vocals change. Like, they drop down to a lower register. And when they hit the halftime groove, like, it's just, it's a stank-faced breakdown. And it's kind of outside of that, like, normal level of, like, like metalcore breakdown that you kind of expect from this band. The vibe on this album overall, it has, again, like a kind of a heavier, darker tinge to it. Marta's synths have always been sort of an interesting thing in the band, and I think on here, they're probably some of her like best compositions in terms of like atmosphere and melodies and such. Those things gave this band a different dynamic overall originally. Now she's doing cleans, and the cleans actually kind of match the whole vibe of her synths, which are very gothic, bordering on like symphonic black metal at times. She complements them well with like very gothic vocals. Like, she's not really like pushing a huge range or anything like that, but she's got this really nice delivery. It fits the vibe, and it kind of gives this band a different dynamic again. Like, this was kind of an unexpected turn for me because, again, I missed out on the last one. But it really works for the most part on here.
Back when I initially got into this band, I always liked Brandon's vocals anyway. He really had kind of like an intense, not so much growl, but almost a bark that was occasionally growled. But on this record, he does showcase a bunch of different dynamic. Not only are his growls a lot more lower registered, especially when they get into these really heavy moments, but there's a lot of higher screams, a lot of yells. On the song Path of Our Disease, there's gang vocals, but he's just doing a lot more than kind of that straightforward scream that he had on at least the earlier records. Like, there's definitely a lot more going on here. The drum work, too, on this record, I thought was very, very well done. Lots of syncopation. Again, kind of akin to Raymond Herrera as far as syncopation is concerned. Just everything was on a dime all the time. And blast beats, too. Very clean blasts. Not something you typically hear in metalcore, at least, done with that amount of precision. I was impressed. Songs like Gallows, Dead But So Alive, and even Wartime had really awesome blast beats. In fact, Wartime has blast beats as a tag on them, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, just a bunch of different musical dynamics for this band.
And that goes with the guitar work, too. Like, guitar work, it kind of reaches all over the place. Like, of course, you have what you expect from metalcore. Hefty, syncopated, chuggy breakdowns, big, nasty grooves, but there's a little bit of like Blackened sort of atmosphere and more like distant riffs. Hail Destruction, it's more of a mid-tempo sort of banger with like hefty, syncopated chugs, but there's a lot of like strummed, like almost more like dissonant riffs to kind of give it a colder, more gothic sound. You also have like a lot of melodeath riffs in there, thrashy machine gun riffs that show up, and even some like flat out hefty death metal tremolos. So there's a lot of different elements kind of woven into this sound, and again, like some stuff I didn't really expect. And we even have some interesting guest stars on here. Doc Coyle shows up on Lost in Isolation. I think he's doing clean vocals with Marta and possibly Brandon on there. He might have thrown in a bit of guitar work too. I'm not entirely sure. The liner notes in the booklet are very, very limited. Just lyrics and then some very basic, lists of people for production. Which I will note that vocal production was done by Tim Lambesis, which I'm pretty sure the band was like, can we fucking take that off there? And they were like, nope, sorry, it's already on there.
I will say that although Tim Lambesis is Tim Lambesis, I won't get into more because we're not talking about him anymore. The vocal production on this record is really solid. I didn't have a problem with where the vocals sit. They're powerful. They're in your face. Like, I thought it sounded really good. So say what you will about Tim Lambesis, but His vocal production was on point.
Brian Fair shows up on Wartime, which I love hearing Brian Fair again, and I can't wait for a new Shadows Fall album in the future. That song is a really good mix of kind of like everything the band does. It's got big melodies, big, stinking, heavy breakdown grooves. Jesus. And a really solid, clean chorus, too. And you also have Andrew Newfield of Comeback Kid, who does a spot on I Am Resistance, which is kind of an oddity of a track for me. But there are some things in this album that didn't necessarily gel as well. And part of it early on was like when we kind of got to those first two tracks, like, Jesus, that is probably some of the heaviest material this band has put out.
Yeah.
And then we get to Dead But So Alive, which is stupid heavy up until you get to this very shoehorned in chorus. It's not terrible, but it does not fit.
Not at all. And especially with the intensity of that song, because I want to stress again, 90% of that song is heavier than shit. The riffs are dark, they're dissonant, they're chuggy, it's pretty gross, but that chorus kills the momentum of that. And another complaint I would have is that it goes verse, chorus, lead, end, and it just kind of cuts off. But yeah, that chorus doesn't fit. And in fact, as good as the cleans are sometimes, I think the clean choruses don't often fit a lot of the songs.
Well, for me, like, again, like listening to like the front half of this album being very heavy, very energetic, very aggressive, when the clean started coming in more towards the back half, you know, my initial response when I heard, you know, the clean show up on Dead But So Alive is like, this song might be too heavy for clean vocals. Like, it kind of just needs a vicious chorus to go along with the rest of this viciousness. But as the album went on, the clean choruses started showing up more. And, you know, I liked them for the most part. They were kind of hit or miss. Lost in Isolation and I think Wartime are probably two of the best ones on here. But I Am Resistance is one that I feel like is just too cluttered. Because I believe you have Brendan, Marta, and Andrew Newfield doing vocals all at once, and it just comes in as this just layered, just overdone, overblown chorus. And well, this is one where like tonality and again like the shifting sort of sound of this album came into play, because this song is very power metal-y. Like, it's very triumphant, it's very epic, it wants to inspire you. But for me, it kind of came across as like, this is what happened to the front half of the album. But even before that, Path of Our Disease, which, you know, has a good 4/4 time stomp. Again, it's very anthemic, but it's more aggressive. It kind of feels like a radio nugget. Like, this is the thing that, you know, if you went to that FYE, this is the song they would play you. Like, oh, this is going to be the big single. It's probably on the radio. Or like, no, it's not. My radio here sucks. They won't play this.
It seems very toned down, especially in comparison to what comes before it. Overall, as the record, because once again, the first half of this record is very heavy, but then you get there and you're just like, could you have done a little bit better? The song overall was kind of strange anyway, but I just feel like they really, really toned down on the heft for that one.
And what they replaced the heft with, sometimes it felt a little cheesy. Again, I Am Resistance, tonally, there really isn't anything else like it on this album. Like, again, it's very bright and shiny, and, you know, it kind of has, like, I wouldn't say like a Dragon Force vibe, but it definitely has, like, again, like a power metal sort of shimmer to it. But it also has that later Architect sound, which I do like early Architects, but most modern Architects is just terrible. And I'm talking about, you know, the UK band.
And then there's the song Emery, which, I'm going to be honest, the groove in there is super catchy, but the synth melody that's played underneath it sounds not only random, but it's a counter melody, and it doesn't link up with the melody of the riff like at all. It's just really weird.
Yeah, at no point did that melody gel. And in fact, like, it's one of the few songs where I'd say, like, the synths are just flat out too loud. For the most part, they sit at, like, a pretty decent level. Like, I would probably put them back a little bit.
Yeah.
But this one just came in loud to the point where it drowned out the riff, and you get this, like, weird kind of synth burp over, like, one of the main parts of the riff. And it was just like, dude, why is that a thing? It just never, like, comes together as something that's, you know, has like a legit hook. Like, it just sounds off. And honestly, most of my complaints about this album kind of lurk on the back half of it. I didn't have a production gripe up until Emery. And in terms of songs, the front half of this album is definitely way more vicious, aggressive, energetic than the back half. Like Wartime and Unholy Armada, solid closers. They kind of, give the back half a little bit more heft and a little bit more dynamic. But
pizzazz.
Yeah. After Last Breath, which is a, really pretty instrumental, you get some like haunting vocal harmonies. Honestly, the thing that I thought of was like, it's the hero's low point in the movie. And he's like, oh, God, I'm sad. I'm in the rain. They're burying my partner.
Yep.
Again, because I keep losing partners because it's one of those cop movies.
Yes, I'll drink myself to death.
It's that moment. But, it's really pretty. And then, like, again, the second half just feels lackluster compared to the first half. And, well, I'm at least appreciative that the front half was so loaded with just killer songs. I kind of wanted more because, like, the more this went on, the songs were energetic. Like, dude, let's keep going. And then, it was kind of like, hey, we're going on an adventure, and you go through like some cool cities and cool mountains and shit, and then you are stuck in Nebraska for like the next 17 hours. Even people from Nebraska are like, God, I hate cornfields.
Yeah, I've driven through the middle part of the country, Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, all that jazz. It's kind of like that. There's just not a lot going on. You look out the window and there's not a lot going on, and you're upset because it's going to be that way for what feels like forever. And that's kind of what happened with the midpoint of the record. Like, I'm not saying at any point in time that any of this is necessarily bad. It just gets sandwiched in between a lot of good stuff, and you're just like, okay.
Yeah, this is like driving in between any city in Ohio. In between any city in Ohio is just like, well, this is a sprawling nothing-scape. But overall, I still enjoyed this for the most part. I just wish there was a little bit more for me to like sink my teeth into in terms of the back half of it. So overall, I'm going to give this 3. It was close to a 3.5. But again, like I felt like there was just like a little bit of a letdown with the second half. But man, when this band is on it, dude, this like kind of makes you want to go back and jam a whole bunch of Bleeding Through again. Dude, the riff work in here, solid. Dude, the hyper-aggressive songs, that's where it's at, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Our Brand is Chaos. That song, again, might be one of the most vicious songs this band has ever written. And honestly, I like the addition of Marta on vocals, too. I think she does add a lot of, like, melodic flair. And again, it stays very gothic and very haunting. And that's sort of a dynamic that this band kind of had over other bands. Like, there weren't a lot of bands that were doing exactly what this band was doing in terms of like metalcore.
Yeah.
And I like that they found a way to like further cement that. I think the guest spots for most part were pretty solid. Yeah, this was just an all in all kind of just nasty album that, it kind of led us on a little bit, but still it kind of capped off pretty well. If you're a big fan of bands like, again, like I would say Cattle Decap, Black Dahlia Murder, honestly, what I thought of that's kind of similar to the Breathing Process.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to them too. Check this out. Give it a whirl. It's pretty solid.
I'm also at a 3. I think Brandon's vocals is what did it for me. Like, I heard his vocals and I was like, yeah, it's been a long time since I jammed Bleeding Through. This is cool. And the front half of this record is definitely loaded and definitely heavier than I think they've ever been. Throughout this record, too, I will say that there are lots of dark, very sinister melodies. I don't think this band has been that dark, although they've always had kind of a gothic vibe to them. This is definitely darker, I think, across the board. A lot of start-stop in the riff grooves, and like Nick said, when they're on point, dude, they're firing on all cylinders, and it's downright heavy. And then it kind of shits the bed in the middle, and again, it's not bad, it's just not great. It's kind of like you get teased in the beginning, and I wanted more of that intensity and that heft, and didn't necessarily get it, and even though it closed kind of strong, the middle lost me. And that's pretty much where I sit. The lead work was solid, the production is solid, it sounds like old Bleeding Through with just a more modernized and polished sound, and I dug it. I did enjoy the record, but it is a 3. Once again, if you're a fan of bands like Ingested, Cattle Decapitation, Whitechapel, definitely the Breathing Process. That got me. That's gonna get you too. Check it out for yourself. It's a great return from a band I haven't heard in a very long time.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We also have memberships. They are only 99 cents, and we do a members-only live stream as our lone perk, which we're going to try to do those every month and maybe try to mix up what we're talking about. Maybe we'll ask you questions instead of you asking us questions.
Ooh.
I know. It could get really weird really quick. Memberships are the new way to support the channel more directly. We also still have our store, thrallsmetal.com, with our t-shirts and hats. That is linked down below in the video description. And, of course, down here someplace is a join button. So you can hit it and join the channel and brag to your friends and proclaim on top of a mountain someplace that you are not a loser, even though joining this channel might, like, make that more arguable.
It might. And we, every now and again, will stand atop somewhere tall, pretty much on Nick's deck out in the back. And
that's as high as I go. I'm scared of heights.
Right. Scream that we're not losers and nobody's listening, and that's pretty much where we're at.
It's
but
bad for the best.
We're listening to you, and we do all of this stuff for you guys. Tons of stuff going on here at Thralls of Metal all the time. Album reviews, discography rankings. We got At the Gates coming up next, which is going to be fucking sweet. Nick's never-ending collection updates, states of metal, is it metal, is it not metal, tons of discussion forums, live streams, retro reviews, all metal all the time. That's what we do. We do all this for you guys. We are genuinely appreciative of everyone that has joined this channel, all of our fans, everybody, man. It's killer. I can't believe we have over 20,000 subs. That's mind-blowing to me, but the fact that you guys are here is awesome. We appreciate you more and more every day. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys absolutely rule. Tons of content coming your way. So one more big thank you because of how awesome you are.
Thank you.
And it's Valentine's Day, so you get a kiss.
Love. I will hug you.
That's probably creepier than my kiss.
No, I don't know about that.
I
don't think
don't
so.
know. Well, we'll let the viewers decide.
They're both pretty creepy.
He's gonna hold you for a long time, erection included. Anyway, you guys absolutely rule, and we will catch you later.